Hey, it's me, Sean, from the Commander's Brew. We've got another exciting deck tech for you. It's Veyran, Voice of Duality from the C21 Commander decks from Strixhaven. It's all about X spells, and we have a wild time with it. Check it out.
All right, here we go. Veyran, Voice of Duality. Am I saying that right? Veyran. Exciting commander.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Like I saw this one and was like, okay, Magecraft on a commander. First of all, dangerous in a good way, and very exciting as a result.
Yeah. Veyran, Voice of Duality from the Strixhaven Commander Precons. Very exciting to do this. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So the Veyran is 1 blue-red legendary Ifrit wizard, 2/2 with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Veyran gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And this is the fun part. If you're casting or copying an instant or sorcery, causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. That includes Veyran's +1/+1. So every time you cast an instant or sorcery or copy one, Veyran gets +2/+2, and any other permanent that wants to check when you cast spells doubles up on its triggers as well. And we went pretty deep on that, and it's very fun. We're essentially copying permanents, and we're building up for giant X spells. That's the plan. So let's set the scene. And the feature card for this comes right from the precon, and that's Elementalist's Palette. It's 3 mana for an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell with X in it, put 2 charge counters on Elementalist Palette. This is an artifact. This is a permanent. If Veyran is on the battlefield and we cast an X spell, this will trigger twice and we'll end up with 4 charge counters on it. So we can tap it for colorless. Sorry, we can tap it for a mana of any color. It's just a basic 3 mana mana rock. But if we cast an X spell, we're allowed to tap it for colorless for each charge counter, but we have to pay for something with an X in it to get that extra mana. So that goes up to 4. Veyran, now we can cast a decent X spell, like the next one. And Veyran, when we do, we'll put another 4 counters on it with Veyran. So now that's up to 8 counters. This thing gets very big. This is a key piece of the deck, and there just so happens to be an X spell that we want for it. That's Whir of Invention. X, blue for an instant with Improvise. Search for an artifact with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield. So we're going to get this first. That's what it's for. But if we already have it, we definitely have other artifacts to grab with Whir. I mean, we're allowed to make X. At that point, we'll probably be able to make X equal 20 or 30. So, but we certainly don't need to for artifacts. And so the main game plan of how we're planning to win, Andy, let the people know what our game plan to win is.
I mean, we're in Prismari colors, which are also known as Izzet, and we're talking about X spells. So, this next card it looks awfully familiar. This is Sphinx Bone Wand. This is a card that we have in Epic Experiment. It's the killer. It's the end of the game. I'm sure it's quite just as powerful here. It's a 7 mana artifact. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on it. If you do, Sphinx Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. This card, I mean, this just gets out of control. It grows not exponentially, but geometrically, but that's still very good because you just cast a bunch of spells and it just gets one bigger every time. It's actually anyways. My math terms are probably all wrong. We also have Aria of Flame, 2 in a red, for an enchantment that says whenever enters the battlefield, each opponent gains 10 life.
You're welcome, opponent.
Yeah, but then it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a verse counter on it, and then it deals damage equal to the number of verse counters on it to target player or planeswalker. So very similar card that just kind of gives your opponents a 10 life head start first.
Yeah.
And then gets going.
But let's remember, Veyran has both of these trigger twice. Whenever we cast an instant, we put a charge counter, damage, put a charge counter, damage again.
Right.
So it's like the first 2 hits, like the one spell won't do 1 damage, it'll do 1 plus 2. The next spell won't do 2, it'll do 3 plus 4. So it gets pretty fast, pretty big, pretty fast.
Veyran being like a 3 mana commander seems very powerful because
yes,
as we saw in the earlier Magecraft deck, what was that one you made again?
Extus.
Yeah, in the Extus deck, we saw like infinite combos with Magecraft happening very easily with like copying spells and stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that Veyran is 3 mana and can come down so easily and then double up even those, like the triggers that happen from those things, that seems completely broken.
It's pretty broken, right? And well, we want to break it as much as possible.
Sure.
We're commander players after all.
Absolutely.
So of course we're going to proliferate. Tezzeret's Gambit. That's a sorcery for 3 and a Phyrexian. Draw 2 cards, then proliferate. Great. We're happy to put more charge counters on Sphinx Bone Wand, etc. More counters on Elementalist Palette. And of course, Flux Channeler, 2 and a blue for Human Wizard, 2/2. Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. This is a permanent, so whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, Veyran will have this trigger twice.
I was about to ask.
Yes.
Does this work that way? Because it doesn't name instants and sorcery specifically, but it does trigger off them, right?
It is a permanent that triggers. Amazing. That's all Veyran cares about. So these 2 are best pals. Best pals indeed. Yeah. So that's the game plan. We're looking to proliferate, to just grow a ton of mana, a ton of things through Elementalist Palette and other mana rocks that have counters on them. And we're looking to do huge X spells. So let's get into the neat moves. Working on a neat moves. We're just going to take a second to handle a little bit of business. And the main point is, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of our comedic takes and offbeat decks, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that bell to make sure you don't miss anything. And if you're loving our stuff and want to support further, the best way is to head over to patreon.com/commandersbrew. Find out how our generous patrons keep our show growing and how you can get in on the brewing action too through our Discord. Or, if you'd rather, just hang out and play some games with like-minded Commander players. Now, let's get back to those neat moves.
Back and looking at the neat moves. What's this first one?
Oh, Rousing Refrain. It is from the Commander Precon. It's a fun one. It's a 3 red sorcery. You add red for each card in target opponent's hand, and until end of turn, you don't lose that mana. And then after it resolves, you exile it with 3 time counters on it. You can also suspend it for 3, which is what happens when it gets exiled with 3 time counters, for 1 and a red. So we can see this thing coming, and then when it hits, we just get a bonus amount of mana. If we're able to cast an X spell, that's the perfect timing. And if we do, it'll come back. Like, your opponents will always see it coming, but it's a nice, like, foreshadow of a bunch of extra mana. And if I know my Commander games, an opponent will have a bunch of cards in their hand. It's usually giving you more than 2 or 3.
It is only picking one of your opponents, however.
That's right. You have to pick someone. But again, finding 6 is not that hard.
Right.
And it's paired up very nicely with Jessica's Will, which was from Commander Legends. This is the 2 and a red sorcery. It does the same thing. Add red for each card in target opponent's hand, but you get to choose this other option. We get to choose one of 2. If you control your commander, choose both. Add red for each card in target opponent's hand, or exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If Veyran's out, that's great. We'll do both of those. But I just want to bring these up. And so imagine an X spell like, oops, I put the wrong. Oh, yes. So that's just a ton of extra mana for X spells. So obviously one of the big X spells we want to cast is Fanning the Flames. It's a sorcery, red X with buyback 3.
Wow.
And it deals X to target creature or player, to any target. It's been changed to any target. So we can certainly afford the 3 with those spells, with our Elementalist palette, and being able to buy this back and then having all our proliferates, and now the next time we cast it, we'll be able to cast it for an additional 6 or 8.
Even more.
This card is an MVP.
Wow.
Oh, and then so I mentioned that Rousing Refrain tells us the mana is coming in the future. Well, there's a great X spell to time with that, Andy.
I mean, if you can get Commune with Lava to work that way, X, red, exile the top X cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. I mean, that's pretty incredible, right? Especially like you said with Rousing Refrain. If you can get that timing to work out.
Yeah, and it's not that hard.
No, not
yeah, it's pretty cool. And so since we're dealing with X spells, right? You gotta have a few counter spells, Andy. What kind of counter spells are we running?
I mean, Syncopate is one you don't often see in Commander, because of the nature of it is pretty situational. You need to wait till your opponents tap out, generally speaking, because it's an X spell. It's X and a blue for the instant counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Just a single blue pip there, which is actually kind of nice. But the X is I mean, you're going to be able to hold on to this for a while. It's pretty good.
I feel like I'm running a couple ones like this. I don't know how this would be in practice, but I do think there's people tap out.
People tap out. Exactly. That's the thing. Like, Syncopate isn't terrible. It just there are just some turns where it's like, okay, if that's the first spell they cast, like in a normal game with a deck that doesn't care about X spells, obviously.
Yeah.
But even then, you can still find ways to use it. It's just that it's not going to always be the one you want.
I love the tone. This happened to me once. It was a bluff, but I've never forgotten it. I tapped out to do something, and someone goes, "Did you tap out for that?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Okay." so I was like, "Oh man, do you have something that makes me pay one or a mana tithe kind of thing?" So like being like, "Oh, did you tap out for that?" I did. So then you got to pay one more. They're like, like once you get burned for that, from that point on, if you ever ask, "Did you tap out for that?" People are like, wait. I'm actually only going to cast it for less then.
You can't do that.
I love the fear of God, like putting the fear in them. That's why these are in here. Are they optimal? I don't know. Getting all those counters, extra things, they'll probably be fine. I just love the mind games of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think for using Elementalist palette, I think that's worth it. And especially if you can do a Syncopate somewhere in between, turns 4, 5, and 6, to stop something important, I think it's going to be fine. Later in the game, it might not be the best draw, but there's lots of cards like that.
Well, that's the thing about Elementalist Palette is that it only taps for 1 mana if you're not casting an X spell. Mm-hmm. So there's probably a world where I've got 6 or 7 counters on it. It's like, well, a cancel, it would work for 1 mana, but it works for X equals 6 on Syncopate. So I might as well just
and then just adds 2 more, and then it's all building towards your goal. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah. So we're looking for permanents that want to trigger twice, and one of the best is Sunbird's Invocation. It is in the precon for good reason. 5 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards, where X is the mana value, and you get to cast any spell mana value X or less without paying for it. The rest go on the bottom. This gets around timing restrictions. So if you cast an instant on someone else's turn, as long as it's from your hand, you get a free spell, which could be a sorcery or a creature. And of course, Veyran will trigger this twice. You'll get a double dip, 2 spells out of it with Veyran.
That's nice because I have seen Sunbird's Invocation whiff from time to time.
Yeah,
there's no guarantee, especially there's I can't remember who did it on the stream, but it was they cast off a Sunbird's Invocation 4 or 5 times. I think it was one of the CCO guys. I think it might have been Ryan. And maybe it's Brando. Anyways, he only hit once with it out of 5 times. That's probably not normal, to be honest. That's probably just a little bit of bad luck there. But you're guaranteeing, they're just going to go nuts with it if you get to do it twice every time.
Well, and so you might be thinking, if this deck is full of X spells, X would have to be 0. There's no point in hitting an X spell with Sunbird's Invocation.
That's true.
And you are right. That doesn't work. It still helps Elementalist Palette if you cast it for 0. It still proliferates. Veyran will still get double triggers to grow for the turn. You still get all the triggers from it, even if you cast it for 0. That's not ideal, but what I didn't talk about is that I've got lots of, because we want to be casting a lot of spells, there's lots of little cantrippy draw type of stuff. So at the very least, we will hit one of those, I think. It's very difficult to fully whiff with this card, especially if we get a double dip on it. Especially if the first X spell is like X equals 15, that makes the mana value like 16 or 17. There's no way we're whiffing if we get to look at 17 cards.
And you do get to choose, right? It's not like you have to pick the first one that you come across or anything like that.
No,
so
you look at them all and you pick.
You get to pick, which is nice.
Yeah. Looking at 17 cards twice is a pretty sweet.
Yeah, you'll find something.
Okay. So we've been kind of goofing around here, getting double triggers, proliferating. Our Sphinx Bone Wand is hitting people pretty hard, but maybe that's not all out there. There's one way to amp up this engine. I'm going to put a few cards together here. Andy, let me see. Why don't you bring us home with this little package here? And it all starts with one card.
All right, well, we'll start with Clockspinning. This is one we featured before on the show, actually. I remember a long time ago. Single blue for an instant with buyback 3. Choose a counter on target permanent or suspended card. Remove that counter from that permanent or card, or put another of those counters on it. So we can either take stuff off the suspended cards, or we can obviously add stuff to the permanents. Okay, so knowing that, look at these cards next. Krark the Thumbless. 1 and a red for the 2/2 legendary goblin wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, return that spell to its owner's hand. If you win the flip, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So casting Clockspinning with Krark out means we get to double the coin flip, right? And yeah, so that's cool.
And so Krark is, specifically with Krark and anything with Veyran, is like we're not copying the spell. One spell is triggering Krark twice. So if Krark gets a head and a tail in any order, we're doubling the spell and putting it back in our hand. If we double heads, we'd copy it twice. If we double tails, it comes back to our hand twice. Right. But we still get the trigger for the cast. We still get the one cast trigger. Pretty great.
So that's pretty nice with the single mana spell like Clockspinning. You get to do it as many times until you hit both heads, unless you, of course, paid for the buyback. Right. We also have Goblin Electromancer in here. Blue, red for the Goblin Wizard. It's a 2/2, and instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. I mean, I assume this is just an auto include in any Veyran deck, just because we have so many of them. And of course this counts X spells. So that does make your Clockspinning. Does that affect buyback?
It does.
It does.
It makes the buyback cheaper.
So the buyback is only 2 here, and then we also have Birgi, God of Storytelling. I mean, if we're talking about combos and mana, I mean, Birgi's going to come up. 2 and a red, legendary god, 3/3. Whenever you cast a spell, add red, and until end of turn, you don't lose the mana, and creatures you control can boast. I mean, don't worry about that.
Don't have any boast. No boast.
We're just doing this to cast a spell, then get mana back. So does this mean that we Clockspin with buyback, and it only costs 2? So, but we get 2 triggers of the Krark thing. So if we hit on both of them, explain this. This seems like it seems like it's am I ever going to net mana here?
You might, right? So Goblin Electromancer is not the only spell reducing effect in the deck. I just use them as an example.
Right, okay.
But Birgi gives us a red whenever we cast a spell. Birgi is a permanent, so Veyran will have her trigger twice. So we gain 2 red every time we cast a spell.
There you go.
So Clockspinning costs 4 total to buy back if nothing's affecting it. But with Krark out, you you can take it. So I can put Clockspinning intending to put another counter on my Elementalist palette or my Astral Cornucopia or one of those mana rocks. I can intend to do that. Bergie puts 2 mana into my mana pool. Krark triggers twice. I'm going to flip 2 coins off of it. Veyran gets bigger by +2/+2. And if I get any head or tail combination or 2 heads, I'm going to get at least 2 extra counters on the thing, the Astral Cornucopia. If Flux Channeler's out or something like that, that's gonna be like
it gets
I'm
wild.
gonna get like
and
I'm gonna get that 1 mana can put like, I think we figured out like 7 counters on something if it like lines up right. And now we have more mana, so we can sort of loop Clockspinning over and over and over and over until we run out of blue, because Bergie gives us red. Yeah. So then it's just like, okay, great. Now my thing's up to like a zillion counters. Now I just got to flashback a Devil's Play or one of those buyback to Fanning the Flames and just go face with a huge burn spell.
Wow, yeah, it seems like do you cast the first Clockspinning with buyback like just to be safe, or do you just go for it? Like, what do you think?
If I have Flux Channeler out, I probably am okay to take the chance.
Yeah.
But I think, like I've got ops and stuff too. Like I'll get the like Clockspinning. The buyback is the key. It really could be anything with buyback,
really?
But Clockspinning is so nice because it actually pumps up your mana rocks. It adds counters to them.
And Krark making the copies, also
trigger Veyran,
right? Adds Veyran, so like you can also make Veyran like 7 times 2 essentially, plus 14 plus 14, which is also an out of nowhere, like, depending on what you've done before, maybe even a kill.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, if you get to keep doing it, then obviously that's gonna add up.
Yeah, certainly. We'll talk about it in Lost Cards, but you could certainly do a brew where you're just trying to maximize Magecraft and make Veyran unblockable and 21 power, which is very reasonable. It's
funny because it seems like you can kind of accidentally do that in this deck, even though that's not what you're trying to do.
No, it's true. Like
the power buff of Veyran is kind of this total bonus thing that is still super deadly and super good as far as like strategy goes, but no, that's just bonus. Like we're actually trying to, cast a big fireball and kill you.
Yeah, totally.
Unreal.
That's the deck. That's the plan. That's what we're going for. I have to thank the Discord people for going deep on this one. I'll speak for myself. I don't want to put them under the bus with but like I struggled to find something like that was really inspiring to do with Veyran. I was like, what are the most interesting permanents to kind of like double up on? And we went pretty deep. So thank you to Chiefy, Dylan PH, Nosrak2, Pips Don't Lie, Lolwhat, Jamon, Beppo, Micah Eternities Crafter, Brave Sir Robin, Papadio, Madisman, Boaz, Jared, The Wizard Cops. Thanks everybody. If I forgot anybody, deeply apologize. I'll get you next time. Can we do the budget report then?
I think we can. Okay, budget report time. Where does this one come in at?
So on TCG Player, the paper was about like 110, and the mid, I get a hard time with the mid because I never know what version of Sol Ring they're including in it.
Yeah,
but the mid was tough. Like $60 or something like that. But let me tell you, the most expensive card in the deck is As Foretold, which is up to almost $20.
Wow.
Like, it's the 2 and a blue enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a counter on it, and then once per turn, you can pay 0 instead of the mana cost to pay for a spell.
It's a good card.
It's a great card. It's not the best in this deck. I mean, it's best suited because you can't cast X spells with As Foretold. It doesn't work. Like Sunbirds, like you get something out of it, but you don't want to. It's especially good if you have counterspells, but again, not the X type. Like it's great to hold up a like a negate or a spell swindle, because As Foretold can cover the cost. But again, we're not full of stuff like that. So save yourself $20, cut this one right away. Jessica's Will, which we talked about too from Commander Legends, is like $11.
Yeah, it's a new staple.
So,
it's a new red staple.
Yeah, there you go. But there is one card that was a little pricey that we didn't talk about yet. Andy, why don't you take it away?
This one is Trade Routes. The wonderful white bordered, like what is this? Like 9th edition card?
This one's 9th edition. The Mercadian Masks is the black border one.
What's that, sorry?
The Mercadian Masks will be the black border.
Oh, okay.
one.
So you can still find this in black border. Trade Routes, 1 and a blue for the enchantment that says pay 1, return target land you control to its owner's hand, and pay another 1, discard a land card, draw a card. I don't know when this would have happened, but I have a feeling that Omnath might have had something to do with this one becoming more expensive than perhaps the previous was, unless it was always expensive. I don't know.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that like this gives your lands cycling for 1 colorless. There's that enchantment we've kind of turned on that gives
the red
for
one.
red.
Yeah,
but this gives us cycling for nothing, and in an emergency you can return lands and cycle them if you're desperate to find your final combo
this
piece.
card's really good.
Yeah.
This card's really good.
Yeah, no surprise it's like a $6 or $7 card. But like you can replace this, cut Jessica's Will and As Foretold. This deck does not need the extra mana all the time. So yeah, like you can get this down to like almost $50, no problem.
Easy. That's nice. That's really good to hear.
Oh man, it's so fun. X spells, I love them.
This is what we haven't seen a good X spell brew from you in a pretty long time, it feels like. And that was kind of like your calling card for a long time, and it's good to see you come back home.
Yeah.
The one thing that bums me out about any X spell brew that doesn't involve green is that poor Roisin. She can't be in on this one. Roisin the Meanderer.
Or that new green enchantment that like double, or is it a Hydra?
Yeah, it's like a green enchantment that doubles X spells when they're on the stack.
Doubles the X part.
Yeah, doubles the X part of any spell. Great card. Yeah. Hey, well, there you go though. This is it looks like a dangerous commander to me. Like if I were playing against this deck, I don't think I would want to let Veyran live for very long.
Well, you won't after seeing her do her thing once. Like I feel like on face, Veyran seems like whatever, but then you see it in action, like oh yeah, no, this is dirty.
This is dirty. Yeah. Right. Well. Great stuff. I mean, that's the episode. That's the full. That's the full deck there. Check it out over at TCG Player, of course, and go to Wizards Tower as well. That's going to be it for us this week. We will see you with the lost cards in a little bit, but until then, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.